it's trying to create a special moment where people have an emotional attachment to that experience. It's not just going into a restaurant and having a meal. It's not just or joining a member club and saying, hey, I'm part of a club, or walking in the case of Fotografiska into seeing a picture up on a wall, a photograph. It has to be more than that.
I'm Patrick J. McGinnis, and I coined the term FOMO. That's short for fear of missing out, and it's why some people end up following the crowd when they should be blazing a trail of their own. But if you want to achieve greatness in business and life, you've got to break free. Come on, I'll show you how. This is FOMO Sapiens, where we explore how entrepreneurial thinkers find the inspiration and the courage to build exceptional lives. Welcome back to another episode of FOMO Sapiens, the show for entrepreneurial thinkers. I'm your host, Patrick J. McGinnis, and today we're diving into a conversation with Josh Wyatt, CEO of Avant Gardner and the Brooklyn Mirage, which if you've ever been to Brooklyn and you like music, you know what I'm talking about. Now, Josh is a serial entrepreneur and creative strategist known for building cultural icons like Noya House, Fotografiska, Equinox Hotels, and Generator Hostels. Welcome to FOMO Sapiens, Josh Wyatt.
Patrick, it's great to be here. Really happy to share some time with you.
It's really good to have you. You guys we're taping this in the weeks leading up to you reopening Brooklyn Mirage, and we're going to get into all of that. You're working hard. But before we get into all of that, I have the question that I ask all of my guests at the beginning of the show, and we're not going to let you escape. The question is this. Tell me something unexpected you learned about yourself that changed everything.
Something unexpected that I've learned about myself has been the ability to run into risk. I actually, when I was younger, avoided risk, and partially because of my upbringing and my background in my life. And as I got older, maybe like perversely, I've really enjoyed embracing risk on a bigger scale. And that's something that's actually brought me a lot of happiness. Typically, risk brings stress or uncertainty. But I found that, as I've become more confident and more experienced in my life, I run into the fire, if you will. And that's really served me, I think, quite well, not only in entrepreneurial pursuits, but I think even in my personal life. I've been able to really continue to expand my relationships, my friendships, my professional interactions with this greater appetite and tolerance to take risk.
What the thing that I learned, I was very risk averse. My dad worked for the government. My mom works for a small company. I come from a small town. And then my big takeaway, which I think is proving out in this world, is like even the things you think are low risk, they aren't, because we live in a time of tremendous volatility. And so in a sense, the things that look high risk, you actually, maybe your entrepreneurial ventures are more prone to fail, but at least you have some agency. Whereas, when you're working in some large company and then something bad happens, like you can't affect that outcome. So there is kind of a weird kind of change in the way I've seen risk over the last kind of 20 years.
I would wholeheartedly agree. I mean, especially in the micro time that we live in right now, or the sample set of time we live in right now, like change is happening extremely quickly. And that word agency, I think, is an extraordinarily important word that everyone should be aware of and really think about when they're making certain personal or professional decisions.
Now, speaking of change, I want to start with the change that you are leading right now. So you run this place called Brooklyn Mirage, which I bet a bunch of people have heard of, but maybe they haven't heard of it. So tell us, what is Brooklyn Mirage and what are you doing over there? What is the big change that you're affecting?
Yeah, well, this is it's an extraordinary story. This company, I've been CEO for a little over 6 months now. I came in as a change agent, transformational CEO role. Had the great opportunity and privilege to work with the founder of the company, Billy Bildstein, who came up with this, what I would really describe as this unique community of dance music, and just overall good vibes over in Brooklyn 10 years ago. And what started out 10 years ago as really like a roving warehouse party, an outdoor rave, really a large, almost festival like experience in this industrial zone of East Williamsburg and really the border of Bushwick. Over the last 10 years, like a lot of businesses do, it's morphed from really almost like this gonzo entrepreneurial moment into what is now a very significant nightlife, culture, music, and entertainment business. The Brooklyn Mirage now, and we'll talk a little bit about what we're doing, but now is home to over 100 shows a year, averaging call it 6,000 people coming through its doors, and really has been able to create something that is unique, I think, in entertainment, which is this confluence of music, hospitality, culture, art, and nightlife. And I think there's a lot of companies or a lot of concepts out there that may have one or two of those things, but looking at sort of the journey of my professional career, it's taken all the tools, all the experiences, all the skill sets over the last 25 years in hospitality to actually arrive at this moment. So I feel deeply prepared and deeply ready to be a part of this crazy story of taking on this company and then working with the team to design and launch a new Brooklyn Mirage, which opens May 1st of this year.
It's a really interesting to think about, because I think I went to some of these roving raves at some point or another, and they were very cool. There's a big difference between having, intermittent events and building a purpose-built facility with all the new technology, with a huge investment, and in a complicated city. And you took on this challenge, and I'm curious, you joined this company within the last year, if I remember correctly. I remember we chatted when you were joining. Just for background's sake, Josh and I met in Sweden at the Fotografiska Museum at a dinner there a couple of years back, and we had heard about each other, and it was like best friends right away. But I remember when you tell me that you were joining, and the question I asked myself is what is it about him that they see? But at the same time, what is it about them that he sees? So what was that dance that you did? What was that fit that you were able to put together?
I think, again, to my opening comment about embracing risk, when I left Noya House and Fotografiska after having run Noya House for 5 years and merging Noya House into Fotografiska, and which was really sort of a shotgun marriage in the middle of COVID, to bring those two companies together quickly to frankly survive at that time. Once I stepped out of that, out of that situation, really out of that cauldron, if you will, of navigating through the pandemic, and really navigating with very few, if any, resources, I said to myself, the next opportunity that I take, I wanted to have 3 or 4 key things. One, it needs to have big flow. It needs to have big market demand for whatever the product is. So I think in any type of either turnaround or entrepreneurial venture or growth situation, you want to have a big market. And I think this particular opportunity, I looked at it and said, my God, music is getting more and more important, especially with the really the onset of technology. People are unplugging and they do want to go to live events. I mean, all the macro trends are there. Attendance to live events is only growing. So big flow, big market was the first test. The second test, or the second goal, was to find a company that constantly innovates. So there are a lot of companies that maybe deliver a product, whether it's a hotel or a car or a consumer good, and they deliver it and then that's it. That's it for many years, right? And I think at this point in my career, I wanted to be a part of a company where there was constant innovation. And when I spoke to the founder of Avant Gardner and the Brooklyn Mirage, he had built the entire company and the brand Mirage based on this concept of constant reinvention, constant creative pivoting. The word Mirage literally means to appear and to disappear and to reappear in different forms based on what you may perceive to be the reality in that moment. And so I think what greater brand name, right, and brand ethos to take on than something that is literally inherently about change. And the third goal or test that I wanted to really pursue was the ability to make significant change and impact in a community and in a city. So, in my previous companies that I had run, I think we had a really good impact, maybe on like a block of a city or on a small creative community that was meaningful and meaningful strategically, meaningful emotionally. But this is at a huge scale. I mean, this is changing New York City. It's changing how people consume and experience nightlife and hospitality and art. And if you look at some of the engineering and architectural strategies that we're employing with opening the new Mirage, this has never been done before at this scale. This is the largest prefabricated wooden structure built in New York City in the entertainment space ever. It is a huge moment for New York. It's a huge moment for the entertainment industry. And that's something that I think all of us here at Avant Gardner are extremely proud to play a role in and to be a part of.
Where did you make this prefabricated? This sounds crazy. Where did you make it, and how the heck did you get it here?
Yeah, well, we're doing this interview maybe at like the peak, the peak political waters of tariffs, that we're all navigating.
I haven't heard about these tariffs. Just kidding. Yes, we're in the middle of the tariffs. Yes,
newsflash.
Maybe when this runs, everything will be done. So, probably not.
Yeah, it is an extraordinary change, in the macro economic environment in the last 8 to 12 weeks, and we have navigated through that literally, like we've navigated the waters literally. So we took a view, and the credit for this vision goes again to the existing team at Avant Gardner and to the founder, where they had a very long track record of being able to build structures quickly and using temporary methods, much like Formula One or World Cup or a large festival would build over say 3 to 8 weeks. So these types of temporary building strategies have been employed in the past. However, the major difference was that the company previously had not been adequately capitalized and had not necessarily had the opportunity to really take sort of a methodical step back and really think big picture as to what the company would look like, over say 3 to 5 years if it had the perfect balance of capital, of team, of market opportunity, and of creative design process. So when I came in, I worked very, very hard with the founder and with the board to say, look, we have one shot at this. This is a situation where we have to turn around the company. We have to do some repair on the reputation based on some of the missteps that the company had experienced in 2023. And we have a one-shot opportunity to enact massive, immediate, and forceful change. And to do that, we got to bring together those 4 things: that confluence of capital, of team, and of design process, and building methodology. So we decided to prefabricate everything in Switzerland. So the wood, the timber is prefabricated all over in Switzerland, and flat pack container shipped over in, I believe it's 103 individual containers.
Wow.
Across the Atlantic. And then we have, I actually don't know how many tiles we have on the LED side, but hundreds of LED tiles. It's actually the largest LED wall on the East Coast. So the Sphere is really the only other structure in the United States that has more LED tiles. But we manufacture those in China, and we were able to get those over before the tariffs kicked in. So, we've been navigating not only building one of the most innovative structures in the world, but we've also navigated these political waters. And again, credit to the board, the investors, and the team to be able to navigate all that in a 12-week period. So it's been interesting because the fans, the industry, they don't actually understand how this is being built. So, there's to your earlier point about New York City and a tough environment to build, it is, but there's certain methodologies that you can employ that can reduce that risk and speed up the time. So, it was a parking lot literally 6 weeks ago, and now we've gone vertical, with a 70-foot high structure, that is built over 4 levels and has over 6,000 people capacity. That's nearly done and opening up a couple weeks from now.
FOMO. I just think about, this is just like opening those containers and being like, where do we start? Like the instructions that are sent, the amount of planning, it's really incredible. I'm just curious, like thinking about we've all put together some furniture from IKEA, and then you get to the end, you're like, oh, I didn't use like 5 of these things and I skipped, it's like it kind of comes together, and then you can't do that when you have people inside of a venue that needs to be solidly constructed, that has a huge budget, that is going to be, built to last. Like, who actually, was that an internal thing? Did you work with an external partner? Like, how did you actually figure out how to do that part of it all?
Yeah, so we have 3 or 4 major design, engineering, architectural partners on this, both over in Europe and here in New York. We take safety, we take design extraordinarily seriously, and again, if you look at the history of nightlife and like roving warehouse parties and raves, that safety and security and following the permitting rules that was actually not a thing in the culture of the industry 5, 10, 20 years ago. It was almost like a badge of honor to flout the laws or to flout the rules. But make no mistake. I'm a 51-year-old, Harvard Business School graduate, like yourself. It's where we both went to HBS. I'm a father of 3. I take my fiduciary and moral responsibility extraordinarily seriously. So, building and constructing things done the right way, all permits, all licenses, everything, triple checked in terms of how we're building the steel and the prefabricated wood and the finishes. And making sure that we follow all of the various fire code and Department of Building and Department of Transportation and sanitation regulations. It sounds like a sort of a detailed, almost frankly like nerdy answer to your question, but I think it's an important point as we get on to some of the perhaps more sexier topics around music and entertainment and nightlife. But you cannot build a strong company without a strong foundation. And that foundation in this case is not only a great interior team that we've developed and a great culture on the team, but it's also building things that are designed the right way and designed to last. And I've done that throughout my career. Like, I'm very proud of the brands that I've built. Like they are still doing well and have been around for quite a long time. And I envisage the same thing happening here when I move on at some point. I think that what we've done here is game changing, and I think that it will last certainly for many, many years, if not decades. So it's again something that I wouldn't call it luck. I would call it preparation on behalf of the investor, behalf of the founder and the board, to take a step back and say, hey, let's really do it right. We got one shot at this, and I think knock on wood, but I think we are going to get it right.
Yeah, that's the thing that's so interesting, is that you go to an event like this, or you go to one of those, Fotografiska, which is the museum that you ran before, or Noya House, which is this kind of like, I don't know, it's co-working plus. And they're cool and vibey. Don't tell them I said that. But, they wouldn't agree with that, by the way. But I'm just going to say.
Yeah, they wouldn't agree with that. But I'd say it makes me laugh.
Well, I'm going to say it because I can. But, they're vibey and they're nice, but like, they're businesses and they're run by serious people. And you made that point, like, you've prepared your whole career for this. You show up, you are a brand ambassador, and you are cool, and you have a role to play in representing the brand on the world stage. But you're also a serious business person who wants to create something really sustainable. It reminds me a little bit of a prior guest on this show who I bet you know, Ian Schrager. Mm-hmm. And Ian Schrager came on and we talked about, because like he has built over like, 5 decades now.
Yeah.
Really from, Studio 54 all the way through to the public hotels. He always seems to find a way to have a finger on the pulse and build a brand that feels very now.
Yeah.
But yet that, generally lasts for a while. Like some of the brands, W Hotels, like they're a little bit, they've kind of gone over their cycle. But these brands are enduring. And I'm curious, as you think about building, and they're FOMO driving, by the way. Studio 54 is the ultimate velvet rope experience. Like, as you think about building a brand and building an experience that that generates the FOMO, that gets the people waiting in line, which is so, it's what happens at these concerts, but at the same time is evergreen and that is able to maintain its freshness. Like, how do you do that?
Yeah, I mean, look, I've been inspired by, some of those hospitality greats that you mentioned, Ian, obviously being one of them. I've had the great fortune to meet with Ian several times. And, there's a couple other legends in the business like Andre Blas and, Scott Sartiano and some of these people that I would even call my friends. I've been able to be really fortunate to know them, B, study them, C, be a customer of them. And I think learning how one feels when they are part of a moment. And it could be a FOMO moment where you're saying, hey, I don't want to miss out on this special experience. I want to be there. And I'm going to show up for that. And I'm going to figure out a way to either network in or buy my way in or whatever it may be. There's a very famous saying, like, you either finance it or you enhance it. So,
that's cool.
Using, and that's not my phrase. That's borrowing.
I like it though. I never heard it
from another nightlife legend, but figuring out how to be a part of something. I've witnessed some of the legends be able to build that, and I've always been inspired by it. And I took my own interpretation of that down to Generator, and over to Noya House when I came in again as a turnaround CEO for Noya House and turned that brand. I think at least for a moment, it had this real collective shine to it. And same thing with Fotografiska, where it's trying to create a special moment where people have an emotional attachment to that experience. It's not just going into a restaurant and having a meal. It's not just or joining a member club and saying, hey, I'm part of a club, or walking in the case of Fotografiska into seeing a picture up on a wall, a photograph. It has to be more than that. And that is why people like Ian Schrager have been able to build these, decade-long plus brands that have stood the test of time. We're still talking about Studio 54, even though it isn't in business anymore, but 50 years later, it's still a brand. Same thing actually with his brands that he created and sold, the Delano and Mondrian. Like, these are very successful brands that still are operated today by Ennismore and Accor. And then he went on, obviously, to create Edition and Public Hotels. I think we're doing the same thing here, or I've done the same thing in my career, and we're now doing it here at Avant Gardner, where we look for this emotional attachment to the experience. And again, it has to be more than your core business. So, in the case of Schrager, let's say, he's selling a bed in his hotel, but it's so much more than a bed. It's like you never forget. I never forgot that first time I walked in the Delano in like 1998, and you see the billowing white curtains, the Philippe Stark design. Like,
it's so amazing.
Never forget that. And the same thing, like when we did Noya House and like how we designed some of the spaces and Generator, even though Generator is a lower price point, like I meet people today, and when I, if it ever comes up in discussion, I say, oh yeah, I did Generator Hostels. Like, oh, I remember when I was a kid, I was 22 and I'd never seen a lobby like that. Same thing with now with Avant Gardner and Mirage. Like, people are going to walk into Mirage. And this confluence of great people running the company, extraordinary FOMO generative moments, but wrapped in the construct of design and visuals. And those visuals, when you marry it up with the emotional offering of hospitality, and then you wrap it all within a brand ethos that is actually being really, truly driven forward by a company that cares about that, that's when you get magic. And that magic can last, it's not dependent on one person. I think if you can create a great team that can continually recreate that magic as a CEO or a founder, that's sort of your job. You should be able to retire or leave or get fired or whatever. And like, if the company continues on in a strong way, like, you've done a really, really good job. So that's what I'm focused on here. And, we take this moment of like opening up the venue in a couple of weeks from now, like, so extraordinarily, passionately, seriously, that we hope it shines through, to the people walking in, for the first time and for the 10th time. Like, it's going to be something that I think people, much like Studio 54, they'll never forget. And hopefully we have people talking 10 or 20 years from now saying, oh my God, remember the first time I came in and I saw Black Coffee or Chainsmokers or Empire of the Sun, Peggy Gou, Martinez Brothers, Loud Luxury, Sarah Landry, that's like literally, that's literally just in the first month of the shows that we have, all within this venue that I think will blow people's minds.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I feel like maybe you should make me your CFO, your chief FOMO officer. We'll talk about that later. And I also want to note, I incorrectly associated Ian Schrager with W Hotels. He was not involved. You named Delano. I got him mixed up. I don't want to blame Ian for W. It's not his fault. Okay. He's so much cooler than that. FOMO. Before we go to the lightning round, I have one last question for you, Josh, which is, it's a little bit of a two-parter, but we live in a time, I was just reading an article in the New York Times about how a lot of these nightlife venues in Brooklyn, I'm sure you saw this, are closing down for different reasons. There's rising costs, but people aren't drinking anymore, right? That's so like that kind of part of the revenue's gone. So first of all, and I know you have a solution to this, tell us you mentioned a couple of highlights, but like, go ahead and give us a little sales pitch for folks that have been listening to this and are New Yorkers or visit New York. Like, what are the wonderful things that we're going to encounter at Brooklyn Mirage? What are those wow moments? And then what are the things you're going to be offering to make money because there's no alcohol sales because nobody drinks?
Well, I think it goes back to some of the things we've been discussing about how to run a company successfully for a long time, right? Or how to create like a brand franchise that constantly delivers. And I think part of the success there is constantly assessing what your customer wants and having a firm point of view on delivering for that customer need. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to always listen to everything that's out there, but I think it is important to say, okay, hey, we've studied the market, we've heard, we've listened, and we're going to come up with our solution to this, like in a very forceful way, and with a firm point of view. Like, I think that's really important. I think any product, whether it's a hospitality product or consumer goods or technology, if you don't have a firm point of view on it, it's just going to be mediocre and crap. So, you got to go strong in terms of what your design and your programmatic vision is. If you can do that, and if you have a good pulse or sense of what the market wants at a certain time, I think you can achieve breakthrough success. Mm-hmm. So, look, yes, structurally speaking, there are certain headwinds within the overall industry of nightlife in not only New York City, but perhaps globally. But, as I initially mentioned, we don't view ourselves as a nightlife business. We view ourselves as a cultural platform that's distributing experiences across a broad spectrum. And those experiences will touch on music. It will touch on culture. It will touch on art. It will touch on the overall value of entertainment when you walk in. And so then the next question is, well, what are you actually going to experience when you walk in, right? So we absolutely provide a best-in-class sound, visual, and music entertainment experience when you walk into Mirage. We have the best DJs in the world. We have an L-acoustic sound system that is top of the range and really will blow people's minds or ears when they it won't blow them, actually, because it would be perfect sound quality. And we have the first ever fully kinetic shutter system, which can open and close to reveal the LED walls. So this massive stimulation of the senses will be achieved when you walk into the venue. But then you have other needs. So really delivering on what we think the customer needs beyond that core experience is one of my key goals here. So to your point about changing preferences, yes, people, especially Gen Zs, but I think even, people throughout the age spectrum, like I'm a 51-year-old guy, like, I don't want to go out and drink as much as I used to, back in the day, you go to a concert, you knock back, a couple beers or
40 beers
or whatever it is. Those days I think are definitely changing. And then the Gen Z age range, 100%, I think is drinking less, and, hey, good for them. I think it's definitely the shift towards wellness and health is important.
Well, they're just replacing it with like some edible, but we're not going to quibble. But that's not revenue for you, right? So
there certainly are other substances out there that people would prefer to take, and that is a trend that is well documented out there. So our job is to provide various experiences that can cater to people who want to have a non-alcoholic experience. So
Yep.
we are the first venue, at least that I know of, in the United States, the first nightlife venue to have a full non-alcoholic bar. We're calling it Low Light. So, a non-alcoholic bar, which is like a truly craft cocktail bar experience with no alcohol. Again, is it like the most bleeding edge innovation? Of course not. But I think it is a bleeding edge innovation in terms of thinking about what people want and delivering on that.
Yeah, totally. Meeting the people where they are, for sure.
100%, and then just going through the whole course of the night. Like a lot of our shows last anywhere from like 4 to 12 hours. So you're not always going to be dancing for that time. Or you're
it's exhausting.
It can be, yeah. So it's giving people the opportunity to, explore, wander, to have different types of food. We're launching a partnership with a local Williamsburg food purveyor called Smorgasborg. We're launching some secret different speakeasy locations around the venue. We also have a backstage whole new visual and club experience as well. So the overall journey of the customer is going to be multi-hyphenate in that 4 to 12 hours that they spend with us. And I don't honestly, like, short of some of these incredible mega clubs over in Ibiza and maybe like a comprehensive entertainment district in a city, I don't know of any venue in the United States that has anything close to this. And that's something that we're very, very excited about.
Yeah, with the benefit of being New York City, which is New York City. And so everybody wants to be in New York, and a New York crowd is like no other crowd in the world. And, I'm obviously super psyched to check it out when it's open. Now, Josh, I want to move over now because you just gave me FOMO. You are a master FOMO generator. I want to take us into the lightning round. We got 4 questions for 4 quick answers. You ready to go?
Let's do it.
All right. Ready to go. Number 1, if you could instantly master one skill, what would it be?
Playing the piano.
I can help you with that. I'll teach you. I mean, it won't be instant, but okay, that's good. Well, so I live your dream every day. All right. Number 2, favorite use case for ChatGPT?
Designing a restaurant.
Wow. Wait, what is your prompt?
Well, let's say I'd have to name my agent, so I would call him probably Raffaello.
Yeah. Mine's called Nigel, by the way.
There you go. I like it. So in this particular one, Raffaello, which sounds like a brilliant, lovely, very chic maitre d' / restaurateur. So I'd ask them to design a restaurant experience that is sort of based on the 1970s salon vibes of lovely, chic cocktails, layered materiality of velvets and satins and other great design elements going into this very, very sensuous lounge, all with meals that are very decadent, like lots of flames, lots of other things that are happening.
Sounds like Tangier or something. I love it. That sounds that's hot.
Okay. I'm big on this like Moroccan 70s vibe right now.
We need to. Okay, that'd be our project someday when we have time. Very cool. Number 3, what's a piece of advice you give to somebody? And I bet there are a lot of people who wants to do what you do.
Put yourself in a position to be around industry legends. And that's what I did. To my earlier point, I sought out opportunities to either work for or to listen to or to learn from some of the greats. And I mean, I did it very authentically. And I actually feel maybe in a small way to a couple of those people that I added some value, and whether it was like through a deal or through an idea. But I think surrounding yourself with people that, inspire you and sort of push you in whatever you want to do. And you can really say, hey, that could be me in 3 years or 5 years or 10 years. Like that role modeling, I think, is very important.
Yeah. And you know what? And this is such a good point, is that you mentioned like you've become friends with some of these people. My own experience is people that I super looked up to, I've gotten to know. And now, we talk to each other like normal people, because people like, I love meeting people who are younger than me or earlier in their career that are teaching me things. Like, it's not like I know what's coming up the pike. Like, I want to be current as well. So there's a interchange that one can have with these legends.
Absolutely.
Final question. This is special for you today. What's one piece of architectural or design inspiration behind the new Mirage that most people would not expect?
Ooh,
I know.
well, that's a good one. Operatic grandeur.
Ooh.
So when people think about Brooklyn, when they think about the previous Mirage iterations, and when they look at electronic music, they typically have in their mind a box with a stage with a lot of lasers, a lot of lights coming at them, or a festival stage that's sort of an experience where the experience is the performer performing at people. If you go to an opera, the way the opera houses are designed, they're semicircular and they bring the audience into the performance oftentimes, right? Because you have different vantage points of the performance happening in front of you. So you become a part of the evening. And that has really inspired the team and not only the global design team, but the team here internally. So I think when you walk in for the first time, for those fans or guests who have been to some of the great opera houses around the world, they may see some interesting parallels.
It's interesting as you're saying, like, I'm thinking to like some of the Godfather movies where there's scenes in an opera house, and I never thought about that. Like the audience in the opera in itself is like, it's a big part of what's happening.
Yeah.
Wow, that is very cool. All right. So if you want to find out more about Josh and follow him, you can find him on Instagram at @TheRealJoshWyatt. You can follow Brooklyn Mirage at Brooklyn Mirage, and also Avant Gardner BK at Avant Gardner BK. Josh Wyatt, CEO of Avant Gardner and the Brooklyn Mirage. Good luck with your opening, and thanks so much for being here.
Patrick, thanks so much. Really appreciate it.
FOMO Sapiens is recorded in New York City and can be found on YouTube at FOMO Sapiens or on your favorite podcast network. Theme music is by Mike McGinnis, editing and post-production is by Josh Elstro, and the show is produced by Matt Curtis and me. If you like today's show, please be sure to rate it and share it with your friends. And as always, you can find more about the show and me at FOMOSapiens.com and PatrickMcGinnis.com.